3:36, and we are going to start the panel discussion here. Thank you so much for joining in. We have some very well-known panelists with us today, both Priyanka Modi and Sujata Asumal. I don't think they need an introduction. They're known people from the luxury and fashion segment. However, I will take a short 1 minute time to introduce Sujata to you, and then I will hand over the mic to her to take this discussion forward. In case any of you has any questions, anything that you would want us to take up, any subjects, please feel free to type it in the Q&A section. We will be reviewing it live as we speak to you, and we will try and take up those questions and answer them while we take this along. Well, Sujata has been in the luxury and fashion segment for over 20 years now. She is an experienced fashion journalist. She's been a strategic communicator with global work experience in cities like New York, London, Mumbai, Delhi, and currently she's based out of Dubai. She was the founding editor of Harper's Bazaar India. She had previously also worked with Elle India, Indian Express, and Verve. She is also the author of the famous book, 100 Iconic Bollywood Costumes, that was released in fall of 2019. So Sujata, with that depth of experience, please take us through the segment today.
Thank you so much. That was such a lovely, warm introduction. Hello, ladies. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday afternoon. I hope, firstly, everybody is keeping well, safe, and happy. These are uncertain times, and one industry I think that has received a lot of questioning and in some ways a lot of flack is the one that Priyanka and I belong to, the luxury and fashion industry. It's being accused of promoting a consumerist mindset. I think while the world is pausing and we're seeing that Mother Earth is taking stock of things, we're wondering about consumption. But for me as a fashion writer, I've been particularly proud to say I come from this industry. The way that this industry has come together has been brilliant. It's shown that we are truly a fraternity, from designing masks to, I know, designers opening up their factories to make for dal kitchens, to starting funds and pay it forward schemes for craftspeople. Fashion and luxury has a lot to be responsible for in India. As we know, the textile industry is the second largest employer. Just this morning, Business of Fashion wrote a piece on how 16 million craftspeople could be left destitute at the end of this. But more than that, for us women, fashion is about joy. Fashion and clothes bring us happiness. And I think fashion has a very important role to play in every woman's life. That said, the industry does need to change, and it will change. I have with me Priyanka Modi, who is the creative director of AMPM. I'm very pleased to say I have been wearing her brand since 2002, when the label was launched by her and Ankur Modi. The reason I have loved the brand is that they make clothes for real women. No matter what size you are, no matter what your height is, they will have something that works for you. Their clothes have an Indian sensibility, but they have a real international outlook. I have been able to wear their clothes in Paris, London, and New York. Their clothes are very stylish, but they are never too trend-driven. And I think I have pieces in my wardrobe that are over 10 years old from the brand. AM and PM in many ways brought a new effortless, mindless approach to the Indian design system. It's a label that has always been happy to answer questions on diversity, inclusivity, and sustainability because it is part of their brand. And Priyanka has been very vocal about speaking about this. So I'm really happy to have her with me. Hello, Priyanka, and thank you for joining me in this chat. If I could just, Priyanka, could you just unmute your thing? And I will be opening it up to the floor because I know lots of you will have questions for Priyanka. If you could just ask them in the question and answer session at the end. Again, Priyanka, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Sujata. The feelings are absolutely mutual. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Rinki, for the warm introduction. And thank you, lovely ladies, for being here.
So I'm going to say that there's no doubt we're in crisis. I think we have to start and address the elephant in the room, almost the crisis. Fashion is about change. Fashion is about adapting. But I don't think fashion has seen something like this since World War II. Factories shut, people not going to work. We've never seen something like this. So even an industry that is all about change and that embraces change seems to be going through one of the worst times ever. Tell us what is happening to fashion globally. what will happen to those AW collections that you've been working on, and what's happening to the stock that you have right now?
So yes, all of us are aware of the crisis that we are all facing, and together. It's been absolutely unfathomable to see what's happening with COVID today. And I think the effect of it has been in every industry at large. So, but just speaking about fashion, I can give a few insights here as to what's happening with fashion as we speak. So one of the first things that happened when, the fear of COVID started, booming, is that the stores shut down. So all retail outlets were the first to get hit, and they were shut down. So no retail existed.
And in India, we have no e-commerce as well, which is different to other countries, correct?
Yeah, so even online, even though consumers are curious about what's happening and what the new collections are, but they're not being able to shop because all the deliveries are completely, they're not happening. They're absolutely out of circuit. So stores and offline both completely shut. With the inventory, of course, it's not seen, the merchandise is not seen its life at the stores. So either when we open, it's going to go into deep discounting, which is actually never a good idea. But I think everybody's going to, force themselves to do that in order to have their cash flows come back into place in order to run their cycles going forward. And as for the shows, Sujata, of course, world over, they've been cancelled. We are seeing that, all the events that people had planned, all the shows that were going to come up. And, these showcases basically become the biggest newsmakers for the industry. And that's going to completely go away.
I think people forget fashion shows are our trade events. They are our version of a trade event. They're more, yes. They are so much more than just a fashion show. They are where the business is conducted and done.
Yes. Yes, and for a fashion designer or for the fashion industry at large, I think it's one of the most prominent marketing tools. I mean, that's the only way you communicate to your consumer to what is coming up. So, that force has also, we're going to be devoid of that force going forward for some time at least, till things settle. And of course, then monetarily, the organizations are taking a very big hit, because it's a very seasonal industry, and the cash flows flow when the season picks up. And while you're prepared for seasons that are going to be dull, but you're never prepared for something like this. There's been
you're not prepared for complete closure.
Yes, absolutely.
And what will happen, you think, to the AW to fall winter, when hopefully things are open up? Will things be back to normal, or that quarter is going to be affected as well?
Actually, of course, everybody is planning, redesigning their design cycles, and autumn winter, of course, will come. But with the production getting delayed because all the factories have been shut down for the past 1.5 months, there is going to be delay in that cycle. So what we are doing at ANPM, we are trying to just put the cycle that we've not launched, the summer collection that we've not launched is going to be the first collection that will go into July. And after that, we'll catch up with the season as we move along.
So I have read a few pieces which are talking about how actually it'll get seasonally much more real, because internationally, when you walk into a store in July, they're already in fall.
Right.
So maybe for the consumer, collections will actually now start falling when they actually want them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned a very valid point that, fashion is always ready for a dull season, but they're not ready for a closure for this kind of crisis. Do you think fashion will now adapt to get ready for this, and how will they adapt, and how will they now have crisis as part of their plan?
So whilst I think India's seen a certain sort of crisis time and again, and in the past 2 years for the industry, it's been actually pretty tough with demonetization happening, and then GST came in. But this one, of course, there's been no preparedness for this one. But the industry has actually, been going through a certain cycle of crisis for the past couple of years. And luxury is unfortunately the first that gets hit, because, right. It's by aspiration. It's not an essential. But having said that, recently, actually out of, I went through this conscious entrepreneurship course, which was actually fabulous, because I learned that, for an organization to constantly remain healthy, you need to concentrate on your 5 pillars constantly, which we tend to neglect. So finance, the founder pillar, process, people, and sales. So if you constantly nurture these without being laid back when things are going well, then I think you're in a better position to fight a crisis. I'm not saying like this one, because this one nobody imagined, but you can fight a lot of the others. So just my 2 bits. And out of those pillars, I think the 2 huge takeaways is, one is being the finance pillar, because Indian industry, I mean the fashion industry especially, is so seasonal that all your cash flows are planned according to how the season sales are going to be. And when that doesn't happen, you'll end up taking a hit. So you need to nurture those 6-month cash flows a lot better going forward. And the other piece is the people's piece, because I think that is something that, of course, we hire the best talent and we take care of them in our own ways. But I think the harnessing of their potential is something that we don't do constantly. And these are the people, like any war, I mean, without the people, you can't fight any war. So, these are the people who are standing with you even at this time. So I think a lot more attention needs to be given to harnessing your talent.
So you said you did a conscious course, and in fact, during this lockdown, I've been doing sustainability course. Of course, right. These words, mindful, conscious, sustainable, they've been used by fashion right now. I think for the last 2 seasons as almost marketing words, and everyone is saying after this, because we've had this forced pause by Mother Nature, we are going to become more conscious. Do you believe that fashion is going to become more conscious?
I absolutely think so. I mean, there is no choice but to become more conscious, because the customer is going to definitely become more conscious, especially the Indian customer. I think they switch to different buying patterns when a crisis occurs. So if they're going to consume more consciously, which I think that they will, they're going to be mindful of their spends. They're going to scan every product through price, through ethics, through design talent, through creativity, through quality, through timelessness. So if the consumer is going to be so conscious, I think the retailer is going to have to produce a little lesser, but at the same time, push the product that's going to be more consumable for the consumer. And in that, the cycle will just have a ripple effect, because when you're going to be making less, you're going to be buying less, you're going to be buying lesser raw material, then you're going to be producing less. And when you've got less inventory, then you're going to be discounting less. So the cycle is going to, just go back down. And
so there's going to be a slowing down, which in the long term you think could actually be a good thing.
Yes, I think so. And I think in this forced way, we're going to be able to do a little bit for the planet. Ultimately, I mean, we speak about,
because the word crisis in Chinese, as you probably know, has 2 meanings: danger and opportunity. So you think there is opportunity? It's not just a story of doom and gloom.
No, I mean, of course, there is danger. There's danger right here. It's staring us in the face, because this is just the beginning. And I think all that we are planning is around survival. And when the markets do open, we are bound to hit recession for a while now, for some time. It's not going to be very short-lived, this crisis. I think it's going to be embedding fears that we've probably not faced before. So, but having said that, yes, there is a lot of opportunity, and I think people need to sort of declutter their roadmaps and look at things that are important. And as opportunities, I think one of the first things is that people must concentrate on their e-commerce handles. I think something that the Indian industry has, especially fashion, they've neglected it. So I think that is one of the things that they can take up at this time very easily and bounce back stronger once the markets do open. So of course that is one. And even global, I mean, even for manufacturing, I think with the equity loss that China has had in this time, I think India is going to be taken as a preferred market to manufacture from. So there is another opportunity lying right here. It's just that, we need to sort of be there and, jump onto it.
I know you just spoke about e-commerce, and I've actually been working on a story on that, which comes out this weekend. And every Indian designer I've spoken to has talked about the importance of e-commerce. You have 12 stores. You're one of the more successful brands to have 12 flagship stores, so congratulations on that. But right now, you hear about Neiman Marcus and you hear about all of this. What is the way forward for younger brands? Should they be looking at doing their own flagship brick and mortar? Should they be looking at part of a multi-brand? Or should it be that they're looking at their own e-commerce? Or should they be looking at one of the biggies like Myntra and Pernier's pop-up shop? What do you suggest to a young brand out there?
So I think young brand or old, Sujata, and I say this for ourselves also, we recently, since the past year and a half, we've been working on our e-commerce handle very extensively. And of course, we've made a few mistakes along the way, but
share maybe one of the mistakes, because I find people learn a lot from mistakes, and we've all
so I think we because this is something that we've not learned over the years. And it's different when you're a part of an online website, because they take care a lot of, they take care of a lot of things for you. But when you have to run a platform on your own, there are so many technicalities that you don't understand. And I think the learning curve has been, you can keep hiring agencies, and we've had, we've faltered so many times, because an agency, if you don't know your job, you'll never be able to handle an agency. They will not do it for you in the best manner that's possible. So over time, we realized that it is best to have the entire department in-house in the organization.
But not everybody can afford to do that. So then what your suggestion is to someone?
Or even if you get even one person who can handle an agency, who has more knowledge, without that, you're not going to be able to scale it up. You need to start somewhere, and you need to have the right knowledge base, the right professional handling it. I don't think it is possible for an entrepreneur to be able to get into every technical skill set and learn it, and then learn over years from those mistakes. So for the young brands also, I mean, even if they had to hire an agency, it's the right time to study about it. If they can't do it on their own, then they need to do the deep digging into finding the right agency.
And I can see you said you'll keep studying. So that's something I think people can learn, that during this time is to get onto online courses and to look for wherever their weak points are now, trying to learn about.
Absolutely. And I think for the young designer, it's just that they'll have to force their mindset towards an e-commerce handle and not look at brick and mortar right away. So I think for the young designer, it's going to be way more reasonable than opening an entire store at this time.
I think we all have to realize that digital is now part of our world. I mean, I'm a journalist, and I seem to just be doing Insta lives and webinars. And when I get to write a sentence, I feel like, wow, this is such a luxury that I'm actually writing.
Yeah. And for brick and mortar, I don't think that it's going to vanish. Re-strategy, yes, definitely. I think people will have to re-strategize that part, even including AMPM. So we are looking at, we are going to probably...
So you're going to have book appointments. How is brick and mortar going? How is shopping going to be when we do open up? Some designers have told me they're going to have to book appointments to come to their stores. How is it going to work for you? What is the way you're looking at it?
So I think going forward, what we're going to concentrate on is, of course, the e-commerce that I just spoke about. I think young and old designers, everybody.
But in the physical stores, how is it going to work?
But in the physical stores, we are working on a lot of precautionary measures so that it can be a super safe environment for the consumer. And we're going to make it as easy as possible regarding their deliveries, their orders, the communication made to them, so that they have to visit the stores less and less.
Okay.
And as a reinvention plan, we are probably, going to just keep stores as experience, those experiential models. That's it. And probably just, they're just going to be these experience centers that speak of the brand values, brand philosophy, and they're just those touch points, because I think all of us love to touch and feel luxury before we buy it. I mean, even as a consumer, I don't have the mindset for shopping online, no matter how popular it's becoming as a handle. Probably I'll be forced to, but I still love the stores. So I think that's not going to change. The experience, of course, has to be uplifted, and it has to be very welcoming and safe for that consumer who now walks into a store.
So you're in the Pret, more in the Pret, in the luxury Pret, ready to wear market.
Right.
Do you think that is the right market to be in right now? We're talking about social distancing in the stores. There's going to be social distancing in life, which means everything from the Great Indian Wedding, which is what couture is all about, to even your bigger red carpet events are going to have to change. And perhaps now people will only have smaller events of 10 or 20 people. So do you think the women's wardrobe will also change? So Pret is where it's going to be?
Yeah, so I think we are actually in the right place at the right time. Because I think people's mindset towards buying excess and wearing excess is going to slowly change. They're going to be wanting more timeless, more effortless, more elegant pieces, some things that they can, style up, dress down with equal aplomb, and not having to invest in very heavy clothing going forward. So I think where Pret is concerned, I think we are in the right semi-formal space to be in, because it is affordable luxury that we've been concentrating on for all these years.
And just to know, what are your price points so that we can define what affordable luxury is?
Yeah, so we start from 8,000, Sujata, on an average, and up to 30,000.
Okay. I know I said I was going to ask questions at the end, but this one pertains to my physical store one.
Right.
So it's Charlie's question. What about returns? Yes, that's something. How are returns going to be made easier in the store and also online? Because I understand that 50 to 80% of things are returned in India on e-commerce.
Right. So actually, we've been pretty lucky or fortunate that the returns haven't been so many. But yes, there is a 15% of that gets returned, and it is either for fit or, they didn't expect what they saw something else, they expected something else. So there is a 15% return, but it's not been, more than that, which is actually quite fabulous. We were expecting a lot more when we entered this industry. Where returns are concerned, I think we'll have to change the policies around, reduce cash on delivery with the times, because everybody wants zero contact with the person who's delivering. So lesser and lesser contact, and return policies have to be relooked at. They have to be easier, more consumer friendly. So people should be, feeling safe that if they bought something and they don't like it, they're not going to be stuck with it.
I'm encouraged that somebody's asking about returns, because that actually means that women want to shop.
Right.
There's been a lot of talk in the media about revenge buying.
Right.
What is your take on this new term that seems to become another new buzzword in post-COVID fashion industry, revenge buying?
So truthfully, it was music to my ears when I first heard it. As a retailer, I mean, that's the only hopeful word that I've heard in a long time. But having said that, I think while the Chinese might have been very lucky with this, and they saw some of the revenge buying as soon as they
the revenge buying industry was Hermes and Chanel. Most other brands have said a decline, and let's not forget Hermes are expensive, but they are lifetime investment buys.
Absolutely.
If you buy Hermes, you're not going to get rid of it in a hurry.
Yes. So revenge buying, whilst it's sort of been a popular word, and the Chinese predicted it, and it was true for some time when the lockdown got easier there. But I think the Indian consumer might not behave the same way. And I think we're a lot more conscious with how we spend.
We're I think a lot more value driven anyway in India,
yes,
correct?
Yes.
So the hashtag that's trending in India, and one that is music to my ears, is handmade in India. I love this hashtag. I love the fact all of you in the industry have come together, worked on this. Tell us about this industry initiative and why it is so important to the Indian fashion market.
So I think handmaiden in India, I don't think it's a new hashtag or a new title that's been used. I think it keeps coming back when the economy gets a little sensitive. So it's something that's been there, but it keeps, I think it does the rounds when Indians start feeling that you need to concentrate first on India itself before looking outward. So, I mean, I love the fact that people, and the more you say it, the more you say to your consumer, you're saying it to yourself. So through that spaced repetition, you're starting to believe it more and more. And of course, you're encouraging your customer at the same time to believe in that, the entire handmade in India process, the beauty of it, and how if all of us come together and actually make it happen in our small ways, it's going to have a huge ripple effect to the economy at large. So,
but I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here. This handmade word, it gets me a little worried. Indian design is very expensive, especially in the couture segment.
Right.
And we don't actually know what is handmade. As a journalist, I know of designers who have claimed of things that are handmade. And I can tell you it's just upar ke se, it's handmade, and the whole underneath part is machine made. So
Right.
I get really wary. How do I know the money is going to craft workers? And how do I know this is really handmade?
So I think there are two questions here, Sujata. I'll answer the first. So craftsmen, I don't know why, there's a lot of mistrust there. There's a lot of mistrust that the money doesn't go to the craftsman. So, I mean, there's no easy way of finding.
Today, Business of Fashion did a report where it said that they only get paid, I think it was $150 or something a week, some craftsmen. So these reports are circulating in New York Times and Business of Fashion. So that's where I guess we get so worried.
Right. So, I mean, of my experience in the industry, I think it's been a lot of years, and what I do and some of my friends do, I mean, I don't think that the craftsman is getting cheated in any manner. That's my worry. I don't know where this perception really comes from.
So is it the international brands who think do this, and then the Indian brands get put in the same, bucket as them, if you like?
Or there might be cases, I wouldn't know of all of them if somebody is not giving the craftsman its due. But to me, the craftsman is very exposed and is not naive anymore. So they are charging, they know that they have a special skill. They know that this is something that they've inherited, and they ask the price for that. A woven sari or even the embroider sitting at the factory, they're not getting underpaid by any means. So I don't know why this myth constantly, is there that the craftsman's not getting paid. And yes, India has been indulging in a lot of craft and a lot of handwork. And of course, even if it's getting done through, so some processes, yes, I totally agree that they are machine made. The entire process is of course not by hand. The tailoring is also happening through a machine. So it's half the the karigar's job and half the machine does it for him. But especially embroideries, something that I think women indulge in, that's happening by hand. The turpai still happens by hand. So a lot of the process, yes, happens by machine, but a lot of the process are still done by hand, which is still beautiful. And that is true luxury, because somebody is meticulously doing that for hours.
I'm sure there are brands who I can tell you and who are well-known brands, and because I know it's chicken curry that is done by a machine, and I can tell chicken by machine, but the average one perhaps cannot.
Yeah.
So I'm saying how the industry does need to become more transparent. How do you think they can do that? How can they get the trust back? Because even you've acknowledged the trust is gone.
Yeah. So I think ethics over aesthetics, of course, is a mandate that all of us must follow. And going forward, I'm not saying that printing or embroideries haven't been transferred to machines. Everybody has gone on to those processes because the quality is probably much better and it's a faster process. the consumer doesn't want to pay more than a certain price. Retailers have been forced to find smarter ways of doing those things. But having said that, a lot of authenticity must remain. People must be more ethical, and they must explain it on all brand touch points. They must be able to probably capture the entire process so clearly and in such a crystallized manner that it is going to build back the trust. So at least people who are doing it should follow, should probably take that initiative, and the others will follow suit.
So I think it's good if customers ask questions, correct? So as a designer, what are the kind of things as a consumer they should be looking for and asking when they want to be more mindful and conscious? How does one become a more conscious consumer?
So do you mean, Sujata, by the process itself, that how
would you suggest that women now become more conscious in their consumption? What are the things they should be doing to ensure that they're being mindful?
So like I said, that if they sort of bend towards brands that they know are authentically following a certain process, and they're not just using words as hashtags, which almost sound frivolous so many times. If they start concentrating and reading about the brand a little more intensely and start following them, start following their procedures, probably ask the questions on customer care or on storefronts, then I think the justification will reduce, and brands of course on their own will need to come up with better crystallized ways to be able to communicate to the consumer, either through their social media handles or through their tags, or a note that goes inside the bag with the product, etc. So that they can express, for example, we buy something from Fab India, and then you get to read so much about it at the back of the bag or at the back of each product. Then you just feel, you have that connect.
That emotional connect also.
Yeah, so I think the storytelling.
What are the other things you think you've learned during, and you must have gone back to the drawing board? How is AMPM going to change post-COVID? Let us know about that.
So I did go back to the drawing board. I won't deny that. And I was thinking that what is it that we haven't been doing and we can do better? So some of the things, and I'm not trying to be too, I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to praise AMPM in any manner, but I think some of the things that we've done have been standing on certain values that have remained relevant over time. Timelessness, effortlessness, elegance, affordable luxury. We are very mindful of our pricing. We try and fine tune our processes at every given step. Aesthetically, we have been minimalist, never being in excess. So I think all of that is going to apply today. So I don't feel like shaking those things. What I feel like doing is that I should strengthen my processes further so that I can amplify what we are already doing right. And, but of course, having said that, been also trying to work on a small edit of an essentials line so that it is luxurious and relevant and as versatile as it can be, so that the consumer doesn't have to shop that much, but they can restyle these garments constantly going forward. So some luxurious basics that will sort of see the, that will remain relevant, they'll remain timeless, and then they can be worn over and over again.
I've noticed that when we talk about these mindful collections, it's really women. I mean, as I said, AMPM has been one of the drivers, and of course, it's a duo label, but you are a woman, and a lot of women brands right now seem to be the ones coming to the forefront, whether it's Stella McCartney talking about sustainability, or the fact that DVF is such a strong voice, Diane von Furstenberg in New York, on fashion. Within India, I would credit your mother-in-law Anju and Anamika Khanna as the one who first drew us back to craftsmanship. Do you think women-led brands are now something that are important in this industry, in the fashion and luxury industry?
So I really love some of the work that these women have done. And of course, they've had a multiplier effect on the industry at large. And a lot of these brands that you mentioned, I have truly believed in their work. And I've, of course, got my own mother-in-law, whose name you've mentioned. And she's been a source of inspiration right from the beginning. So I know how she has built her own organization. She started this from scratch without any help, without any business background, without any fashion background. And she used to give me the goosebumps because, when I was, when AMPM was getting established, I used to watch how she used to work. She was disciplined and organized and meticulous, and her passion for textile, everything used to come across so beautifully. I used to, have small anxiety attacks just watching her. But it also pushed me into doing a better job myself. And so, yes, women, yes, they have some very key core values that probably men don't have. They're very intuitive in the first place. So that itself helps. And who can, better to design women's clothes than women? We understand women so much better anyway.
Do you think there's still a gap in India though? Because I still don't see as many women, like, as I said, there's Miuccia Prada, who's the signora of Italian fashion, there's a DVF. Christine Dior today has a woman at the helm for the first time, and until recently you showed it, Givenchy, Claire White, Ikela just resigned. But we don't have so many strong women voices, I feel, in Indian fashion. I still think there's a lacking and there's a room there.
But I think all of the veterans that we do have, Anamika, like you mentioned, and, all the people leading these...
Ritu
Kumar, Anita Dongre, I think they're all leading the way. And I think it is aspiring for the other women to take that step forward. They've actually, these women must be applauded because actually they are making and paving ways for the others, for the youngsters, for the next generation. And they've set some very high examples. So yes, there must be more. I wish there were more, but I think the times are changing. And I think women are taking bigger leaps forward towards that direction. So
I know you're a female designer, you're also a mom, you're also a wife, you're also a sister and a daughter-in-law. So women, we juggle many hats as we do, and we seem to do it well. Right now, during this time, at home, in the lockdown, what has your role been? What has been your first hat that you've worn, and how have you juggled all these hats?
That's a very exhaustive list that you mentioned, Sujata.
You do them all.
So I think women have this strength. They've built it over time. They know how to juggle roles. They multitask, like you said. And so I used to personally not have as much calm and emotional balance. I can say that 5 years from now, 5 years behind, if I look back, I wasn't the same person that I am today. I've actually been handheld by these fabulous mentors who have actually built in those practices in me that I can practice on a daily basis to keep myself centered. And I think that's been my biggest strength and tool, that even facing a crisis of this enormity, I've been able to keep my calm. And since the woman is the centerpiece of the house, if you keep calm, if you keep your emotional balance, the rest around you, it just follows suit. So I think women, of course, have been able to do this for a long, long time. And I think they, manage crisis a lot better. And I think I've also been able to do that. Of course, a lot has come through, my sadhana and my practices. But I think we just need to, what I've been doing is I've just kept my calm. And I think the positivity has helped with all the others in the family. So I think we just need to hold ourselves together, and it'll reflect back in the energies of the house.
That's great. I think that's great, and that's very positive. And I think it's a great way for us to open up to the wonderful women on the floor right now. So I'm going to start looking at the questions. Please put them in the question and answer session. We'll try and answer as many as you can. I am going to start with Sushmita's question. Are you looking at sustainable fashion becoming more prominent?
Yes, I think so. And I think in this period, Sushmita, people have been able to actually go back to the drawing board, like Sujata is saying. And I think a lot of the things that we thought were relevant aren't going to be relevant. And I think everybody is going to go back and view their processes a lot more carefully. And even if each one of us takes one tiny step into doing something towards sustainable fashion, that truly what the word means, I think it's going to have a huge ripple effect, and a huge amount of positivity will come onto the planet itself. So I think everybody is going to practice consciousness a lot more than before.
Nikki's asked about the buyer. Do you think the buyers, the luxury consumers, also responding to this because of lockdown? Do you think their behavior will also change?
I think if their behavior, if you just look back to how our ancestors and our parents, if you open those chapters, our parents and our grandparents, they were a lot more careful about how they used their materialistic things. I mean, they were a lot more careful. They would recycle it, they would reuse it, and they would do a lot towards sustenance. So even as a consumer, if you just go and do that, you do that part right, I think that's a big step towards sustainability itself. We just not, we just need to just go back to our roots and just follow some of the great things that they did in the past.
So Shivoli has asked that, Priyanka, I agree people want to see and feel luxury before buying, and for a long time people will avoid going out. So do you think it's a good idea to eliminate the Pret collection and the current spring-summer as well as, the spring-summer as well as the autumn-winter collection? And Mitali's asked a question that connects with that. If people work from home, do you think that they will spend less on clothes?
Sorry, Sujata, I didn't get the first part right.
Yeah. So first of all, do you think that that we need to eliminate the spring, summer, and AW collections? That there's no need to have either of these collections right
now? I don't see, spring, summer is already out there. It might not make it to the floors if things don't get better, but it's already out there. It's already there in the warehouses. So there's nothing much that can be done about.
So you need to make sure that it doesn't get wasted, correct? Because if you're being sustainable, you don't want clothes that are wasted. You need to make sure what has been produced.
Yes. But going forward for autumn winter, if things do become better, and if there is a miraculous vaccine that does come in, and the cycles go back to not being normal, but nearly normal, there will be some celebrations. People will want to go back and feel positive again, and they will want to celebrate in some way, even if it's in the small ways. Consumers will want to look good. So I think not producing the same amounts that we were producing, but, and it could be a lot lesser.
So it could be a small batch production.
Yes, but I think for the season, you still need to come up with some capsules, which is relevant for that season. So eradicating it completely, I'm not sure if that's a great idea.
And work from home, do you think that's going to become something permanent? And if that does that mean that we will spend less on clothes?
Yes, it is going to have an effect, definitely. And yes, even going forward, a lot of the organizations are already talking about work from home to be a permanent feature. At least for some industries, it is possible. And I think the effect is going to continue. People are going to be feeling a lot more safer sitting at home and working. And that is going to change the consumption anyway. But after some time, I think people will need a change, even if they're sitting at home. Probably they'll need more relaxed clothing. But they will want to indulge. They will want to indulge in those things that a woman loves to do, that is shop. So it might not happen through the brick and mortar formats, but I think e-commerce, like I've been saying, is probably going to be the next big thing. and people are going to enjoy shopping from home. And I think some mindsets are going to change there because not everybody is used to it.
So I just wanted to, Shivoli said, I mean, eliminate Pret and focus on RTW. I just want to say Pret-a-Porter is the French way of saying ready to wear. They are the same thing.
Yes.
So did you mean couture and ready to wear? Maybe Shivoli, you can just get back to us on that. Ruchika's asked, do you plan to cut down on staff?
On?
Staff. On your
sorry?
workforce, on your workforce, your staff. Do you think you will have
Yes.
to make cuts to your workforce?
As in salary cuts?
Salary cuts, or maybe let go of some people?
Right. So we're trying to steer clear of the letting go of people. But the salary cuts, yes, that is something that we are looking at. And it is not going to be to the extent that, you know, people are not going to be able to manage their livelihood. It is going to be subsidized only for the time till the organization can get back on its feet. So yes, there are going to be some subsidized, salaries, but nothing that is going to hurt anyone too much. Of course, we are mindful of that, and our people have stood by us, and it's going to be communicated in the best manner possible, so that, because we know that, you know, the latest hashtag that we are in it together. So I think that's going to apply here. Actually, our people have been coming forward, and they have been most appreciative because we've been very, very transparent with what's been happening around and what's happening to the organization at large, which they might not understand on a day-to-day basis. But I think we have been most forthcoming so that they know that, you know, we are trying to be as transparent there with our workings.
So Shivoli, thank you. You just clarified what you meant. So you meant, do you think luxury couture collections will now not meet? She's asking if they will have any relevance, and it'll all be about ready to wear.
So I think Indian bride still wants to be an Indian bride. You know, it's that one day of her life. So I think she is going to still want to celebrate it.
I think
that
Indian wedding is something that is a joyful and wonderful part of our culture. I do believe it had got out of hand, but it's been something that's there for many, many years. So I think that brides, as you said, will still want something new. And I think the Indian wedding could be a reason why the India situation actually improves quicker than anyone else, because I think as soon as the vaccine is out, I mean, hopefully we don't go back to those ostentatious, 5,000 people wedding, but I think we will go back to the wedding because it's just simply part of our tradition, and it's good for the fashion industry, and it's great for the craftspeople. Do you agree, Priyanka?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people will want to indulge, even in smaller ways maybe, but they will want to indulge for at least those special occasions that they've been dreaming of all their life. So,
yeah. Jyoti Singh asked, what do you think, another great buzzword of fashion right now, slow fashion. What do you think about slow fashion, and how relevant is it for Indian brands?
For Indian brands?
Yeah, slow fashion.
So slow fashion in my mind is very much like conscious consumption.
Correct.
And I think that is definitely going to, be here to stay for a while. And people are definitely going to be more mindful about what they buy. They are going to actually be very specific in their minds as to what is it that they require and what is it that's going to be timeless with them. So slow fashion and conscious consumption, yes, all of these will actually be spearheaded at this time.
This one's an interesting, especially that asks, with so much e-commerce and online shopping, what is your take on plagiarism, and how can you control that? Because I know a lot of Indian designers get very worried about putting their pieces up, even on their own Instagram sites, because copying is so quick in India.
Yeah, like it's been said that, it's people take it as a compliment ultimately. Everybody sort of gets very horrified when it first happens, but it is also very complimenting. And I think it is the designer's job to continue to create, put it out there, let people feel the aspiration. And if people are getting the so-called inspiration from it, even if it's the smaller designers, even if it's, students, if it's the mass-produced brands, the wholesalers, let them do that. I mean, there is no way of stopping that anyway. You can't be living in this constant fear that something's going to get copied. You will move ahead of the cycle. And they will never be able to get the same quality and finesse anyway. So it's okay, you can't stop it basically. So you might as well just keep moving forward in your design and creativity, and you keep pushing forward. And let people do what they have to do. And if they're sleeping well with that, then it's, it's really their problem.
I think we have time for a couple more questions. Justine asked, do you think going forward, as foreign travel will not happen, is this a positive impact for Indian fashion and designers?
Yeah, of course. People will shop more from India. They'll buy Indian. And the handmade, hashtag can actually be practiced a little more during this time. Made in India, buy Indian, all of that can actually come true in this period of time. So yeah, it's going to be good for India.
I think I can already see that from what I can see on Instagram and even the media, that people are talking about homegrown brands more than ever. So I think there's going to be a new pride on wearing Indian and being Indian, and that's something that is encouraging, that has come out of, for me, of this crisis, that we're all so proud to wear Indian clothes.
Absolutely.
Any more questions before I round up? Speak now or forever hold your, or type now or forever hold your peace. Great, thank you so much, everyone. I think we got most of the questions answered. I think what's been really good about this is that we've understood that the Indian fashion industry hopefully will be able to survive because we are so proud of our own homegrown fashion. But there needs to be more transparency. People need to be able to be more open in narrating their stories. We need to make people feel that connection more, one way through the designer's narrative. And I think one thing that has really come through is the power of e-commerce and digital, and how fashion really is going to have two impacts. It's going to go into more slow fashion, be more like it was in our grandmother's time, but also be new age in the way it puts out its fashion, with e-commerce becoming a very, very important factor. Priyanka, is there anything you'd like to say?
So I've been curious to know, Sujata, from you, how is fashion journalism going to react to all of this, considering that a lot of content comes through international, national shows, events, campaigns are going to be probably fewer. So how is that going to affect print media, digital media?
I think print had already started going very digital. This has kind of speeded it up. I think print will always survive. It's the couture, if you like, of what you guys do. So there's a beauty to seeing it in the pages. Fashion magazines' jobs is to provide escapism. It is to give women a time to dream. And I think we're going to really, really need that. But I also think we've seen that you need people who understand and are able to be insightful. So in a way, we've seen a comeback of journalism. I've never been so busy as I've been over these past few weeks. So I think we've seen a comeback of journalism. As for the shows, I have stopped going to shows myself for the past 2 or 3 years. I get to see, I live in Dubai. Most of the international brands do showrooms in Dubai, so I get to see them close up, maybe just a few weeks after. I get to see the shows digitally. So I think that there is a way that digital can work for us. But what I will say is that I am missing is being out on the field. I think for me during Fashion Week, most of my stories didn't come from the ramp. They came from coming and sitting with you in your booth after the show, and that human interaction and watching people touch your clothes. I am worried about how we will get the pulse, which is what journalism thrives on. But I think it's going to be just like it is with you, a combination of old-fashioned journalism with embracing new age technologies.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the CI for, having us here. I hope we were interesting. You can always message us questions if you think of anything afterwards. Be happy to answer any questions. I hope you all have a great weekend ahead. And I don't know if anyone from the organization has something they want to say before we end.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank both of you, Sujata and Priyanka. That's been a very interesting and enlightening, discussion for us. We got very good insights into the fashion industry, and we are all, like you said, we are all in it together. I'm sure we'll all come out of it together, and we'll come out stronger, better, more responsible towards the environment, more sensitive, but I think life still goes on, and social, fashion and business and all the rest of it. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.